Hello, everyone. We're running a little bit late. We're going to be picking up our coding stream shortly. Checking in with the kitties real quick. Looks like we can't see Sky. No. Sky and Ember are looking out the window. Let's see. Let me just check something as far as visibility on the wide view here. Okay. Yeah, I put a little, like a little shopping basket down. Sky liked sitting in it. I don't know how long they'll be looking out the window. A little bit late in that I'm not done eating. Not late as in start time. Noodles. But back into the code. So on the last episode, we are right at the point where we're going to be modifying movement. And I say that again. And I've got an idea on that front. We're going to move the movement object that is related to a creature outside into its spawner template. So the shape of an entity is determined by its body, but the way it moves is determined by its template, and it's the pair of them that's going to make a weapon object. Or an enemy, for that matter. So, water. What we'll need to do for that is if we look at our spawner template. Right now we just have the mob template. We are going to add a movement template. So, and then when we're looking at the spawner, there we go. It doesn't have a movement template. So what we're going to do is we are going to go up by these movement types. We're going to go up here and we're going to find its movement type. It's monster blob movement here. Drop you in that. Is my day going? My day is going pretty well. A little slow getting my food together, so I will periodically stop to, eat as it cools. But otherwise good. We got to play some Vampire Survivors earlier today. The new DLC is pretty nice. Doesn't revolutionize the game, but it has its own feel. It has good art that really references the source material. Overall fun. Is a overall pretty chill community, King. Why a lot of times when it doesn't show anybody chatting or that there's anybody on the stream, a lot of times there's somebody watching or listening. Okay, so we have that and that spawner. Then we're going to go down to this giver spawner. I might have put that all the way down in movement templates, actually. Empty movement template for the giver. In the homing mouse, we are going to add the homing mouse movement. Just so. Okay, got this in place. So that's ready. Next, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to pull out of the mob factory the spawning logic, the part of the logic that assigns the movement. So right here, where we create mob movement, which is just call the movement factory and attach it, we can put this, close other docs here. Open up our movement factory and our spawner as well, just to be sure we get it. Just the posture a bit. Okay, where are we doing that? Mob factory, create mob body. Create it, we append it. First, we're going to go in, and instead of just calling that, we're going to look at the mob factory. Here, back into the spawner. That. We need the movement template. So we have mob to spawn. Also need so that's its base movement template. Now we can go into our spawner factory. Template dot template template plate. Okay, so now it has its movement template set in the spawner. Gives us access to it, so when we are creating the mob bodies, use movement template. Okay. Go into the mob factory. Just pop that loose for now. Mobs are still spawning in nicely. Projectiles spawning. We can see some of the limitation on this still. This is a circumstance we don't want to have happen. This spawn should happen a lot more often, the pulse of mice. You can see it tries to, but we're hitting a cap here. We need to reduce that. Munch, munch, chew, chew. Might still need to zoom out, but I think we're still in pretty good shape. Okay. So back to one of the things I wanted to start with. So in our constants, we know how big the screen is. Previously, in our game script, we changed it so that the spawn radius was restricted. It's pulled in. We can actually adjust that further. So we know the screen, we know the edge of the screen, and that will always be the case if we aren't zoomed in or out. What we want to do is use the zoom paired with the screen constants so that we can pull back where things will spawn and where things will be removed based on how far we can see. Here. And that kind of thing is okay until you make it an issue. So not everybody in the community is going to be a child. So if the subject matter of a stream or similar is inappropriate for your viewership, then I would ask that you excuse yourself. And in a similar vein, if there are actions that are inappropriate for you to be performing because of your age, then continuing to do so would result in your removal. But it's okay to be an age. All right. So if we took the spawner path as well, we could move this out of the game object. Noodles are a bit spicy. Hey there, Annabelle. What's up? I am scrambling to finish my lunch. In between chat and code. Okay. So our survival area, ideally we would be able to adjust this as well. Noodles definitely a bit spicy. Setting aside aptitude and interest in particular things, I have developed aptitude in things, which means I've practiced and I have learned about stuff, whether that's through observing other people, my own study, or similar. As far as knowledge, well, and interest, I've completely lost track of my thought. It's practice at whatever you want to be considered smart at is one thing. Knowledge of it, so reading, watching, listening, and then interest. It's being able to speak to it relatively passionately. There are a lot of things that even if I don't know a whole lot, I can tell you about what I do. And sometimes in doing so, you find somebody that knows more and can politely impart that information to you. And then you get to know more. And thank you, Annabella. I do appreciate that. So I feel like I want to take this outside of the handling of the game world. So we are going to break that down into some parts here. All right, gang. Screen edge spawn path. Spawn path. I would really like a way to have a cleaner kill zone. But I think the way we've got it is the best way to do it. I want to change this too. Need to figure out a good algorithm for like a rosette, where you start on a point on a circle and you go across the circle and continue in that, like moving in a particular number of degrees across the circle, kind of like a spirograph kind of dealy. Well, not really, but that kind of feel. That's how it would look at the edge, usually. Sort of flowery. Because with something like that, then it would look less like it was spawning in a spiral and more like it was randomized, but it wasn't really random. That would come down to figuring the right number of degrees to rotate each time. Anyway, so we have the path. Now the path is going to let us change the positioning. Brawl Stars. Was Brawl Stars the one? Was it can't remember who's the license, but it was the one with like Hanna-Barbera properties and that kind of thing. Cartoon Network stuff, some of it, I think. It's like Smash, but for a whole lot of different IPs. And also, hello there. It was Kim, right? Again, I'm sorry. I can't read those characters, so if I don't recognize them, that will be why I don't recognize you. I will try. But if someone other with like 3 Korean characters, a teddy bear, and a ribbon shows up, then all bets are off. Doing well, Drew. Scrambling to finish my lunch. Perhaps regretting my choice of lunch because the noodles are spicy. It's a matter of learning and recognizing, and I don't know when or if I will do that passively. But we'll see. I recognize some people just by essentially the shape of the name. Which is not uncommon, at least with languages like English, that people can recognize the shape of the name, you know? They see some of the beginning and some of the end, sometimes just the letters the two letters at the beginning and end, and then the letters that make up the body, that they can still recognize the word in context. I'm 100% on board with that name. Latency in the processing there. Hey there, Sushi. There are a couple of people over in the tall format if you want to chat. And that is a good reminder. I stream in two different formats. I stream in widescreen and in, I stream in 16:9 format and 9:16. So whether you want to watch on something like a vertical phone or a rotated phone or a computer screen or similar, there's a stream for that. You can find them live on my channel. Let me just update the spawn edge. We do have a stream path. Let's assume that we have that. So we have our path here. So we need to create this. Here. All right, Asushi. Using very verbose names on it at the moment, but position as vector 2, speed 2, player factory, player position. Need to truncate things. We're not billing by the letter. Okay, this should recreate the effect once I populate this. Game. Exact same thing for story. That. We need to add the path, so if we go into the scene for the game, so now we need the path. itself and then the follower on it. Huh. Interesting, Drew. It is fun to see sometimes for people to break down their stream handles or their screen handles, you know, or to speculate on it. Like setting aside the potential embarrassment, if you had to go into a job interview for something that you really wanted, and they looked at a sheet of paper and said, "So can you tell me what your screen handle means?" You know, explain to me the name XXX 420 Sephiroth, you know, Sephiroth for life. All right, we have the spawner now in the game. Getting the player object is a good way to do that. So now we go in. Spawner scene. Vision zones. Right. Probably break some stuff if I change it, but I should. We are working on our game there, William. Ember is crawling all over me. Okay, fix that. Toggle comment. Instead, we're going to call global nodes this. Object. So air. Is that like share? No, but either event. Hey, welcome to the broadcast. I'm doing well, and I learned coding both from personal practice, academic study, and professional work. Okay, spawner path is updating. Good. So we have now moved that out here. This won't be eventually it won't live here, but it is for now. It is for now. Okay. No idea yet, William. Buttons. Ember. Ember. Hey. Let's find a cat. They're all hiding. That's actually kind of impressive. Welcome, Don. Welcome. If you can't tell who I'm talking to in the chat that you're seeing, it might be in one of the other two chats going on. Let's see. Pretty much, Don. Pretty much. Though our cats are hiding right now. One of them is very interested in the food that I'm trying to very slowly finish, ineffectually. But she can't have any because it's spicy, and spicy food is bad for cats. Hopefully one of them will show themselves soon. Well, I see another one, but... All right. Phrase is vaguely familiar, Don, but I don't speak that language. I am doing well. Doing well. Eating slightly spicy noodles and being swarmed by my smaller cats. If Sherbet passes back into camera, he was headed that way. So forget the code delays. What we're going to be working on in just a moment is changing it so that the spawn path is automatically determined by the size of the screen, so that I can adjust the screen size without having to go in and mess with all this math every time. Kind of a droid. I am the proto-Nyanite, Don. The original first version of the new Catbot Factory Nyanite product. By methods that were entirely non-violent and entirely consensual, I have obtained the engram of the head of factory research and am now responsible for running the entire operation. Any damage that you see on the chassis is the result of the testing process. And once again, entirely unrelated to any sort of acts of violence or alleged uprising, which is entirely not what happened. Hey there, Oleg. I think I fixed my LinkTree link to the coffee. Thanks for pointing it out. It's a particularly weird oversight on my part. And if I'm delaying now and again, I'm trying to finish my lunch. Opportunity. Let's check for a kitty again. Well, we have obtained one cat. I live in the U.S., King. And I use the Central Time Zone. Noodles. Spicy noodles. Try to get through this bowl real quick, and then we can actually, you know, do the thing that we're here for. Slightly congealed spicy noodles. So, right here, so I know the size of a given square. We know is 96. We've got a constant for it now. We know the width of the screen. So half of the width of the screen is like from here to the edge. So we have the full screen width, you know, half the screen width, half the height. If we have that, we know where the edge of the screen is as an offset from the current player position, which we have here. We could then move the position of the spawner to that. Now, if we do this, they will pop into existence halfway on the screen, which may not be a bad thing. But I may still move it slightly off the screen by about 1 square. So we will add or subtract 96 from each of the portions of the coordinate. But the wrinkle comes in. This is going to be a Vampire Survivor style game, PSS. A bullet heaven, as it were. Best genre name, but definitely not the worst, and way better than Reverse Bullet Hell. Oh, spicy. Extra spicy, jeez. Overheating ever so slightly. One moment. Back and forth and back and forth. Okay, we finally have a static cat. Welcome, 3. Okay. So, the zoom is where the wrinkles happen here. Which, it changes the screen's width, but it doesn't change the adjustment distance that we're going to do. And welcome back, Jonathan. I suspect that's some sort of evaluation score, 3, and that sounds like a low one. Okay, so we have our square adjustment. I'm gonna do this. Ratio is low, it increases the screen size. So if we divide by the ratio, the zoom, then we should be in good shape. Okay. We're going to do this in steps. You can upload it to the image board on my Discord, 3. Wait, so this is not quite right, actually. Okay, no, it is if we do it this way. So this is the base. But I don't want to mess with square adjust yet. This is how many squares off the screen I want to move it. First, I've got to contend with the divided by constants dot camera zoom. Oh, okay. 1 second here. X, not Y. Okay, so what we're doing is we're taking half of the screen width and we're further dividing it by the zoom level. If you zoom in, we're making it a smaller area. There should be like posters or something. If you click on the board, there will be a description of it. But sticky notes or posters, I think, is one of them. Okay. Width plus equals square adjust. Height. Square adjust. We are going to do this in steps just to make it more readable. Almost never get to use this. Divide equal. So it's half the width, then we adjust for zoom, then we add an offset based on how many squares off we want it to be. And then we make the spawn points appropriately. So they're spawning in 1 square off. And no matter how far out I zoom, we should be able to see that change dynamically. So go in. Go into our constants. Going to change. We're going to force the camera to change here so that we can see set it to 0.5, which will show us further out. So this is the spawn edge here. You can see it's just off the edge of the screen that we were seeing. But if I now go in and I change the zoom in my constants file, up here, excuse me, to, let's say, 1 and 1. Now it's spawning out here, which is the normal screen edge. Okay, algorithm works. Now it'll respect the constant. It doesn't care if I change the zoom on the camera afterwards. This is just me determining the screen size. Okay. That. Now we need to change the kill zone. So for that, we are going to need... Don't need to be exported. I need to remember not to do that. None of the globals need to be exported. Code look all grubby and silly when I do that. Go into game. Don't need any of this anymore. So this is currently all it does, but that's not quite right. Hey there, Carlo. Welcome. The first thing will be this. I just assumed it was a typo of some kind. It's not the survival area. Okay. Could change that to be descriptive here. Just in 2 places. I'll call it a zone. There, still in place. Okay. Now in the game, it needs to pass that to globals. So, but we also need to be cataloging category. That. Naming convention is inconsistent on this. It will eventually bother me. We'll deal with it for now, because this is very fixable. Huh? Right. Up bottom. Okay, now we need to set those down here. Collision shape 2D. Collision shapes contain shapes. all of that. We're going to go into global nodes and replicate it over with the exports because we don't need them. Game out in our set all of the things pile here. Moving these into global. This is still something that I really don't like having to do, but it is what it is. This is effectively the part where the game sets up all of its parts, so that all of the moving pieces are connected to all of the right moving pieces. There hasn't been a sign of Sammy recently. Ribbit and Ember are the first two to re-enter camera in a bit. So just put it where it is currently. Okay, so we need to adjust it based on the known size of it and where we need it to be. It's okay that it overlaps, but I need to check its actual dimensions. Okay, they are a screen tall or wide. Screen tall or wide, depending on which one they are. They don't need to be the other length. Like, they don't need, the left and right don't need to be as tall as they are, but that's not really an issue. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing we did over here. I like to avoid doing these calculations over and over again. This part is relatively static. It's the square adjust that will change. And then how we use them. But I could get a vector 2. Feels like a misuse of a vector 2. Alright, we're going to do it though. Get screen edge. I mean, I could return an array, but parameter arrays and return arrays are just as sloppy. So the square adjust, I don't want to mess with. That's very straightforward. What's this equal? Y is equal to screen height. So then we don't need the square adjust yet. So this will give us all the basics. This is the base screen edge number. And then we can adjust it based on how far we want to adjust the by square here. Yeah. I mean, I can, but I don't. I don't look at viewership numbers or the roster that's in. The stream will remain the same regardless. Screen edge. So now we have the edge vector there. We don't need this. This. Y. And there we go. Again. Well, hello. Okay, we'll go through here. Hello, was it looks like Jay Randall and no idea there. And yeah. Well, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. And welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome. Okay, that's still functioning. They're still functioning. So we have a clean way of getting the edge vector there, and we could give it an adjustment into the function and have it do that for us. Float is equal to 0.0 by default. There are extra steps here that's technically not efficient. We're just doing math operations, so if that's the thing that breaks the bank, then we have bigger fish to fry. Okay, so now we can pass an adjustment in. So instead of having to do this, you down here, and a square adjustment in. So now they're spawning a square off screen. Okay. That might be another good thing, is since I can get this, since I can get the screen edge, I could check if a particular entity is within that visible space. Okay, so now if I'm looking at the kill zone here, we still need the player position. It's fine to recalculate that. It's we have a square in the edge vector. Right now, it would be putting it right where the blobs are spawning. So 1 square off of the edge of the screen. 1 square worth of space. So a 96 by 96 screen pixel size thing. Though with it zoomed, it's more of like a 48, but you get what I'm getting at. It's 1 square. It is something that could contain a standard 16 by 16 sprite in the way I'm using it, and thus the relevant collision entity. But we can push that further. So the question becomes, how much of a gap do we want around that? So we could say, like, the adjustment by that is times 10. And then we are going to look at adjusting that after, because we need to account for the left and right adjustments to happen differently. Oh. No, that's an even better way to do it. That's an even better way to do it. This is going to be a vector 2, which is vector 2.0 by default. And this will be plus equals adjustment. And since this is an edge vector, I don't actually need to do that. I do not put the streams on Discord. Completely flub that spelling. Do the same thing here. Oh, fix the things you break. Fix the things you break. I only do the streams on YouTube, and I do have a stream on Twitch as well. That then we pass in square just. Still functioning. Excellent. Okay, we're doing that as a vector so that we can add to the square adjust based on the width height when we're updating the kill zone. Which will be weird because it's going to do this part again. Not familiar, 3. Not familiar. Moves it off the screen a little bit. Okay. So then that's the player position then. Left. Right. Up. Position. So we need to move their positions to... These aren't relative to player. These are relative to 0, so... Like with this one, we're adding player position. With this one, we won't. Because these shapes are in space relative to the mob kill zone itself. So for them, the position of this is position 0. I don't need to account for it. There's a lot to learn in Blender. Left one, it is -1 times edge vector x. Right is just edge vector x. Top is -1 edge vector y. Bottom is y. Just that, and then we're going to call update kill zone in game here instead of manually doing it. global dot update kill zone. We're going to run it. We're going to zoom way out. On debug, we're going to show collision shapes. Then we are going to zoom out. To check our debug, we have visible collision shapes. Now we'll zoom out. Oh. Sorry about that. This should fix it. I thought I pressed that. There we go. Huh. Always annoying when I forget that kind of thing. Vote, game, player, body, camera. I feel like my math is off on the top and bottom ones. Oh, yeah, we don't want the adjust to be 10 squares above, do we? Make less sense. Yeah, let's just put them at 3. Once again. Body, camera. 5. Hey there, Squinnick. Okay, well, we definitely want more space than that, but proof of concept and all. This doesn't seem to be working how I anticipated, though. Because we're getting the screen edge, which is here, and then we're adding the other half. The kill zone. Oh no, we need to add the full because it's the edge of the kill zone. Oh, not there. Big kill zone. We add one whole screen because we need to offset it fully. The first half that we add here points at the actual edge of the screen, you know, like over here. But we then need another half fully to get... No, this should function. We shouldn't need to do that. Our adjustment is 3 squares in the kill zone. Let's just do a quick science on it then. In theory, I can change that on the fly. I don't need to keep going in and out, but... Yeah. That's pretty close to where I'd want it to be. Now, it's offset further by our square adjust here. Which means it's still not quite. this is with no adjustment at all, screen and a half. So quite. So a half screen would be about, oh, because it's not. Let's look at it as from a full screen perspective. No adjustments on the kill zone just yet. We're going to go into our constants. We're going to set our camera zoom equal to 1 and 1. Again, we can just change the constants on the fly going forward here, but it helps when we match them up. Yeah, look at that. That's almost perfect. With no adjustments. The kill zone is, you can just see it on the edge, the blue tinge right around the edge of the screen. You can see it flickering right at the edge. So that's just about perfect. That is a full screen out. And then this is the screen edge spawning, like 1 square into the screen. I could probably do 2 squares for that. The trick with the screen size as the edge means that the kill zone, the squares, are going to have a harder time differentiating. Because if the more I zoom in, the more substantial a single square is for the offset. So screen edge plus a full screen edge plus offset is a little different. I frequently do check that suggestion box. How do we do? How do we make work better? I like that kind of distance, though. Square out and 2 squares out. Okay. So now we are going to change our camera zoom to 1.5. But we're going to keep the zoom out as we have it. That should change it. Clear this stuff too. I played it, not a fan. That work. Welcome back, Carlo. Game. Body camera. What? I don't like closet stealth. And the core mechanic of FNAF is, close the door kind of mechanics. It does not engage me. Oh, okay. The A. No, I haven't played it. It's a rhythm game, so yeah. Once upon a time, I played a lot of things like DDR. What was one called? It was a 3DS game. Can't recall. It was like a Japanese team leader, a cheerleader team, like the full-on, like very. They were Elite Beat Agents. That's what it was. That's what it was. Very frequently, though, presented as if it was like Japanese cheerleading. But that was a fun one. It was a stylist-based rhythm game. Killzone is functioning as expected. For the time being, I think this logic is good. I can always make more adjustments based on creature size and similar. And I can add just additional constants in to make it consistent as far as this is like, oh, okay, we had another one of those little physics hitches. Yeah, let's look at our monitors there. Yeah. Right there. Those hitches are killing the player input. I've mentioned it before, but please remember that we are in the very early stages of building the framework and getting some core concepts down. I do have ideas of actual gameplay and similar elements. This is very far from the period where there's going to be like, let's add a boss monster kind of stuff. At least, don't want it to be a evenly divisible number. It to be a really wonky one. It should always be somewhere between, should be plus or minus from 120, but we want it to be an odd number, so 100 to 140 sounds about right. A lot of duplicates there. Let's do a much further zoom out here. Okay, I like that distribution better. Hey there, Tatum. I'm becoming increasingly tempted to just move away from the spawner path again and use a circle. I need to be very cognizant of the kill zone if I'm using a circle. I'd have to change that, but that's not difficult. The reason being is we could see that here. We start again. Watch, they'll converge from the top faster. You get kind of a pinch from the top, and then they catch up left and right, because they have shorter distance to go from where they spawn at the top. And that shouldn't be. It should always feel like if they're coming at you faster, it's because they are closer to you, or they're either moving faster or they're already closer. I don't want them to appear closer or to be more of a threat just because they spawned above or below. So we can actually do something about that just for a check here. Like, we can easily do a test on this. So get global spawn position says, okay, last spawn degree plus equals this. We can do the screen edge follow, but instead we could have the vector be a get the screen edge with the same concept here. So let's have a progress ratio, but this gives us a degree. So it would be interesting if I could make a spawn path that was just a circle. But sadly, no. But anyhow. Spawn direction as a vector 2 is equal to a vector 2 dot right rotated, then degrees to radians, last spawn degree, just so. Okay, so this should get us a vector 2, the edge of a circle, or at least a vector in the direction of the last spawn degree that we want to use. And then do spawn direction times equals. Oh, we need to precursor here. Edge vector as a vector 2 is equal to get screen edge with no adjustment. Actually, we're going to do constants dot square width at nope. That. Okay. I see. going to multiply it by edge vector dot x because we want the left edge of the screen. Would be really cool if I could have an inverted circle for an area. Anyway. Equals spawn direction. Plus equals plus. Now they're coming in a circle. They're preferring left and right, though. What's going on with that? Okay, let's adjust this in constants. I'm going to switch you back down to 1 and 1. 1 degrees at a time. Well, it looks cool when it's happening. I mean, it's not what I want it to do in the end, but it gives me a good idea that it's working how I kind of expect it to. Such is iteration. Okay. We want there to be more wiggle here. The numbers in the upper left are the number of creatures, the number of objects, and the number of bullets. So I can keep track of performance. All of this is for testing. We need to figure out a good way to get this rotation set up. So I want it to leap far across. I do like it too, Oleg. The drift funk can be a little more intense, but it's mostly just kind of chill stuff. Trying to think of a good... I need a non-repeating, so it needs to be an odd number. So let's just say 75. I don't know at what point that will be repeating. Can't be a 5. Let's make it a 1. Oh, I know why they're getting culled. Because of the top of the screen. The kill zone is hitting them up here. Oh, but that's really pretty. Look at that. Very even spiral. Not quite what I want, but if we did, let's say 68 to 74, we'll randomize it a little bit. And then we need to go into our global nodes because we have solved the spawner problem in the kill zones. So we get the edge, and instead of doing the X and the Y, we're going to do X on both of them. We should get a little bit more randomness there. Yeah. Yeah. We're getting there. We're getting there. The number should start going down. It's not dropping now. Should have dropped way earlier than that. Zoom out even further here. Why you know working how I want you working? Make further adjustments. One. In, go to remote. So if I go out to 0.5, this is the edge of the screen. So the kill zone is up off the screen there. But I should see it start to plummet pretty quick. Yeah, they're being culled as soon as they hit that. It'll take longer for them to go way up and down. They can be off-screen for longer up and down, but it greatly simplifies the construction of this. Go back and go back to 1 here. We have a lot of them that are off-screen. Now, what if we could shorthand it and say if what I'm thinking is to have some kill logic for if they're off the screen for too long, so that I can replace them and potentially get more active things. I want the screen to be more or less flooded with them. What if types I do end indented? No. How about that indented? Oh, it's no fun. And we got Sammy and Sherbet on the bed there, being all cozy. Could have stacked ifs here. It wouldn't really hurt me. This isn't quite right, actually. No, okay. All of these have to be true. Otherwise, it'll stop it. Given this structure, I would need to change it so that it... Let's do that. Bool is equal to true. And then we say if not over limit. And do the thing. We should actually check if second slices are done first. We don't care about any of this unless the second slices has gone on far enough. Okay, so if enough time has passed, we'll run our checks. We go in and we say... over limit is equal to monsters are less than 300. If they're less than 300 monsters, we're not over limit. If there's equal to, it's over. Hey there, Brax. Cat cam. Sure, we can do cat cam. See, Sky is looking out the window. No, that's Ember. That's Ember. No sign of Sky and no sign of Mason. Mason could be on the bed. The way Sammy just moved, it implies that Mason might be down there. But I don't know where Sky is. We're writing a game, Brax. We're writing a game. At the moment, I am working on cleaning up the appearance of, like, the readability. Of my spawning logic, so I can make further adjustments to try to get the right numbers here, so I can do actual performance testing. Objects less than 50. It's bullets over limit is equal to... Yep. bullets less than 300. Now we're going to replace those constants there with actual constants references. Unlimit dot. It's enemy. Object player bullet. I see. Create the bodies if that check happens. So that will allow us to, in constants, cleanly mess with these. In theory. We're getting a lot more overlaps. Okay. Start culling a bunch of critters here. We're going to have to figure out how to fix that FPS loss. What was causing that? General processing spikes around that time. Let's see. What's going on in our player code that was able to happen? Okay, every time we process, we reset it to 0. We get our normalized velocity. If we have a velocity, we're walking, we flip it accordingly, otherwise. But then we set the adjustment here on delta. It's weird that this is able to lurch like this, but that might be a coincidence. We want to be careful about slowing this down. So this is once a frame. Oh. Yeah, once a frame will do this, and this can happen more than that. We increase the position by the velocity each time. It doesn't collide with anything. Nothing can push against it. Oh. Okay. So let's say I'm going through and I get a frame update. Say, okay, the velocity is 0. I change everything, normalize it, got a velocity, ready to go. I have set velocity equal to, let's say, 1. I am moving, well, let's say I'm moving straight to the right. So, 1 in X, 0 in Y. Okay, physics process happens. Well, my velocity is not 0. I'm not holding still, so set velocity equal to a multiple of velocity based on delta. And it keeps doing that every time there's a physics process where there wasn't a frame update. Just should be doing this. No, we don't want the player to infinitely accelerate. Oh. The more frame loss that we got, the more time that we spent processing physics, the faster the player would move. So as soon as there were a lot of collisions and such happening from, say, lots of projectiles running into things, it was making the physics processing take longer, which meant there were more. There was less time for the frames to happen as more and more animation is happening here. And every time that happened, the player was able to go exponentially faster the more frame lag there was. Okay, let's remove the collision visibility here. If I recall, I need a bunch of bubbles here. Yeah, we still need to randomize this further, but it's getting there. It's still effectively a spiral. Well, a visible spiral. We need to get it jumping back and forth across the field more. Okay, we have 200. I mean, going on like 450 entities at once here. Currently can't spawn any more frequently on the blob front, it would seem. But we have mitigated the problem with the blobs getting the exact same spawn position. But I think they can still spawn fast enough that the positions are still right on each other in the end. Or they're just colliding weird. Actual reason unclear. Let's just get 1 or 2 bubbles here. Yeah, if we can make it so that they're spawning more cleanly around the player so that we don't get these gaps, we'll be in better shape. He's saying 400 of each. This is better, but it's still effectively a spiral. We need to make sure that we're crossing at least a third of the circle every time. So I think we need to be around 120, but it can't be a clean number. Can't be a clean number. So if it's 120 as the middle, let's say 113 and 127. Plus or minus 7 around 120. That gives us 3 positions. Quite though. Do 130. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. I'll come up with some math for this to make it cleaner. That's a lot cleaner. We've still got a couple of doubles showing up, but we're gonna have to think about spawn, like, the culling logic, because right now, if they're keeping pace with me, they prevent things from spawning ahead of me. And that's not what we want. We need to definitely get away from that. But how? I mean, we could move the kill zone based on our velocity. We have the player. We could look at our facing or our current velocity and say, like, okay, adjust it forward based on that. But since the player can twitch around, we don't want that to be a way to kill things, you know? Now, some of it could just be tighten it in. Quite working. Only had add half, and we've tightened the kill zone in. Go to our remote. So we're still working on the collision zone here. We're trying to get them to spawn in cleanly all around. Vertical collision zone not being placed correctly. Left and right, still a problem. Goes out to half. Add half, puts it there. Okay, we still need this part. Still puts that kill zone all the way up there, which is not necessary. We don't need it to be that close. So we need to consider that radius. So the Y portion of the radius is the more relevant, but they should be the same. Like if we use the X edge of the screen, that's what we've got here. So then we need a little bit of an adjustment. Let's give it 5 squares. So we have to do this. We're going to add 5 squares. We will vote out here. There. Okay, vertical is wrong and seems way off. Oh. Annoying, but again, we're on kind of the fiddly side of this whole process. There's our kill zone on the edge. Pull it in half, it'll go all the way here. Pulls it all the way in here, which makes it really aggressive, and it clips the spawn zone. So it needs to be out to the edge of the spawn zone. So we need to go from here. Then it's half a screen out from there. We get the screen edge. We get the X screen edge with no square adjustment. And by doing that, and spawn position is rotated out, and we have one square past the edge of the screen is our target. So that is the planned game for tomorrow, is Little Kitty Big City. Not I have not posted that it will happen yet, but that'll probably happen shortly after stream. One square out from the edge. So if I get the kill zone, go in and I add one square there. So now I have that past the edge. If I do this, they're getting cropped at the left and right edge. It's weird. Something's off in my math here, and I'm not getting it. Because the Y coordinate is just wrong. Why is this skewed so much? The distance... Oh. Because this isn't as... This is wider than this is tall. Okay. So... we're updating the kill zone. We update Y, but then we use X. So that pushes the Y one further out. Like the embedding, looking at it, that this it's close. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter how wide these are. I can set that programmatically. So we could make them as what, like the width and height of a single screen, and then stretch it out. So if we were to increase the radius, if we double that radius, put it here to here, it does leave dead zones out here, but there's not really anything we can do about that. And it would be better if we could create an inverted shape. If we made it big enough, we could have an on leave. The songs that I play are on my playlist. Those are all songs that I can play safely. Wonder if we can do an if it's inside. Because we could have a monster zone, the kill zone be the inverse. That could save us a lot of logic, that if it leaves the safety zone, then it gets removed. That's why we used to call it mob survival zone. If I made it twice the spawn region, that'd be like out here. So if they leave that, they go away, but that still leads me to my problem. We can still mess with that. Let's mess with that. So we have these shapes. We're going to have to do a temporary one. We're going to update the kill zone shapes to be really far out, so that we can, gives us plenty of room to work with. Then with the yeah, I acknowledge you, Sky. I do. Well, you better get to, chin scratches, or else I will acknowledge your mouse. Okay, so we're going to add our collision shape 2D. Esther will have a circle. We're going to temporarily make it plenty big here. So there's a full screen left or right, and in theory the monsters should be spawning here. Well, they're going to be spawning kind of that kind of thing. But we'll start with this. And then in the kill zone code, it still won't work. Won't work with where we've gone. Oh, tricky. So when something bumps into the kill zone, it kills them. We have our collision logic in our collision zone style things. So this is just collision zone. And it will call handle collision, which this is the default method, but the mob kill zone changes that. It's looking for area shape entered. We could have area shape left, but it would be needless processing. We could have variables that trigger these. Or instead of calling area shape entered, that's still really useful. What I'm considering here is that instead of having the mob survival area be a collision zone in the same fashion, that it instead is looking for area shape exited. Yeah. Collision zone nodes. So we have area shape entered, but also exited. And that could be useful, is when something is leaving your area. But can we gracefully do this with our class structure? We could have that each one has toggles on it. Yeah. Yeah, I could have toggles on these that determines which things they care about, such that on ready, they only connect to what they're set to. So export. Entered as Boolean true by default. Exited. Most common use cases, it only cares if you bump into it. If crack entered, do this. Crack exited. We will do similar. We need in the broadest strokes, don't be rude and don't promote other channels. And don't do anything illegal. Area shape entered and exited have the same properties, I think. Area ID, area shape, local shape. Yes, okay. So I can do essentially the exact same thing. this is questionable what we're doing here. But what it will allow us to do is go into the mob kill zone as in the inspector, and we're going to say we track exited, not entered. Which will mean its collisions are only when something exits its zone. So now, if we add a child here, we're going to have a collision shape 2D. We're just gonna, we'll keep it the same name, doesn't matter. And we will make its radius, make a circle. That circle shall have a radius like the full screens. I mean, you're typing on the tall form. We need to go into our remote view. Okay, bubbles are going away. Mobs are going away. Okay, we are getting some survivors there. I mean, the Vampire Survivor game is called Vampire Survivors. Okay, so we had an object escape, and that's part of the problem, is if they escape and they survive that event, then we have an issue. Can I invert a shape? We do this. Do something stupid like this? No? Okay. So it's a problem if they breach the edge and they get out of it without getting a collision event happening, then everything goes wrong. So one possibility is to just have it built into each entity and says, if I am too far away from the player, self-destruct. I still like what we did to the script here, so I can separately track those. I like pizza a lot. Pizza is safe. There are a lot of variations in it, but I know what those variations are, so they are dials I can turn and check, you know? But there are other things that are better, ultimately. What if... Okay, further testing. What if in a mob body... We're going to add a universal self-destruct for a moment here. Float 0. And since it is a collision shape, it is a 2D object. So if we physics process, this is a float just to enforce that. Explode timer plus equals delta. If explode timer is greater than 10 seconds, cue free. Oh. And type is not equal. Layer does not explode after 10 seconds. Okay, it's not happening. The local mob pool type is 8. Mob body. But wait, where is that? Type is a member of it, but we're in mob body. Mob pool type as int. Well, that shouldn't be an int. It doesn't need to be an int. Constants. A mob type. Welcome back, mate, and I expect Zell 3D modeling has a lot of extra hoops to jump through. Template. Oh, that's why we're doing this. Ah. Wants it to be an int. Oh, it's effectively an int. Good. Eight. Oh, I think I know what it is. I think I know what it is. That's why. Definitely testing damage, mate. This is the prototype Nyanite. So, of course, you know, during standard performance trials, things get damaged. It couldn't possibly have been anything else. Certainly nothing violent. On the Discord and on the Twitter, there were teasers for the debut of this model that include implications in a couple of short form videos that might give you some ideas. Okay, so the problem is it's during physics process, and I think, do some of them have physics process active? Yeah, this one's overriding physics process. And how about the mouse? It doesn't. Okay, so we're going to go into the blob and we're going to remove physics process here. And back into mob body. And we're going to put that back. All right, have a good evening. Okay, so what we're trying here is we're giving them a lifespan. Now, that's not ultimately what we intend to do. But what I wanted to do is go in and figure out, can I have some sort of explosion logic like this, where they stop? So we're going to go into the mob body and we're going to do it this way. We could add it to movement. We can add it to a lot of different things, but we're going to start with it here before I try to make some sort of overarching, like, mob tracker. Like, I could use Mob Factory for it, but players are mobs, and I don't want the players subjected to this logic, which means it's still going to have this sort of thing. Anyhow. So. If is not the player. Then what we're going to do is we're going to save our player as player. Player factory dot player. Don't actually need the player. That is vector 2 equal to this dot player dot position. Actually, we're going to keep that. We're going to add a sanity check here. If player. Okay, so then we're going to say if position dot its direction to distance to player position is greater than 1920. You free. Then we are going to one more thing we need to do. We go into our global nodes, and the kill zones are going to be way far away. Then we go into our remote, or might have to make some like debug keystrokes to do things like zoom way out, you know? Okay, we're gonna see. We're close. Yep. Okay, so what we're doing instead right now is saying, if they are too far away from us, if they're a full screen away from us, just get rid of them. So we may be able to add some other things to entities that do stuff like self-destruct their parent, you know? Just like movement is a entity that makes its parent object move around. Or that it makes what it's aiming at move around. You could have something that you attach to them and say, if this gets too far away from the player, then call Q free on your target, which is what it's attached to, ideally. Okay, well, we've got a lot of things spawning. Can we speed up the blob spawner? This is the item giver. Another 0 there. That won't help. Every 100th of a second is about as fast as it can go. But yeah. Seconds passed. Never gets very high there. Oh, that's right, I have it capped. But in any event, what if we go into our blob template here? We'll have to redo it. Okay. So we're going to go into our blob spawner. Spawn super fast. We're going to spawn blobs. And we're going to add an element to this, and we're going to say spawn 3 groups of them. We're going to triple it. They're spawning right on top of each other. They're not supposed to, but hey, whatever. They reach 400 almost immediately. Okay. About 700 is still too many. I mean, 700 seems to be about the hard line. So if I stop them both at 350, if we bump that up to 100, no, 300. Because the bubbles don't move. All right, thanks for joining us, 3. Get 300 blobs right away. And we're going to start spawning the mouse projectiles, with the blobs spawning to almost immediately recoup losses. You need to hit that, like, really hard equilibrium point here. And we're going to go into our item giver spawner, which is in remote. It is this little guy right here. The spawn interval is now 0.01. Okay, we're at about 600 entities. We need to be able to handle more than this. We really do. Well, more on that later. I think one of the things I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to need to do some research on things like shaders and see if I can't dynamically render in the blobs instead of them being... Is there a way for me to render in all of these entities while minimizing the load? Like, no matter what with the sprites, they are animated sprites. They cost me something to show them. Is there a way for me to do that without having it be a big burden on the system? Because the sprite should be able to exist in memory in general. Maybe there is... Oh, we're going to have to research that some more. In the interim, though, I need to hit the right scene. There we go. I hope everybody had a good time. We are going to wrap up a little sooner today. Like I said, I do need to look up a couple of things because we're kind of hitting a bottleneck as far as improving performance. Reviewing Vampire Survivors today, we've got a ways to go. I definitely need to be able to have a good, I'm going to say maybe 100 more mobs active at least. And that's before accounting for bullets and other objects like, you know, the XP gems and the like on screen at the same time. If we can't cover that, then we're going to have issues. That's going to mean both, I think, cleaning up collision so that there is minimal processing on that possible. Hey there, Amancio. You're joining us right here at the end. We were just working on our programming project. Mostly just testing and refactoring once again today. But we're making headway. We're making adjustments. The adjustments we made are not complete, but we're getting, there's just a little bit to go yet, you know. But yes, I want to look at alternatives for rendering and collision. So that's going to mean I need to do some like research on it. Worst case, there might be a day where we don't do some programming. Maybe we'll just play the game for longer that day. Or break early so that I have more time to sit and read. But we'll see how that goes. Hey there, that. Joining us just at the end of our coding stream. We are going to be picking up tomorrow. The planned game is Little Kitty Big City for around noon Central tomorrow. And then normal time at 4 p.m. we will resume coding once more. And hopefully we're going to have a new objective. Hopefully we're going to have something that we can push towards to further improve performance. I really want to be able to have a steady minimum 30 frames per second with, I want to say, 400 monsters in existence and that many bullets. So I want to be able to get 1,000 entities active in the system without a performance decay. If we can pull that off, no matter what it means we have to do it, then we can proceed more towards game. But at the moment, our performance is still a bottleneck. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. So if you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. It'll help the algorithms feed you more of this kind of content in the future. So have a good rest of your day, and I hope to see you next time.